Hi, everyone. Today is Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. Live streaming from Chicago, I'm Ben Greiner, Director of Apple Technology at Ntiva. As always, with me, my co-host, Chad Calise, our Cyber Resilience Lead. And with us today is our special guest, Paul, rhymes with wow, Bowden, the Principal Program Manager of Office for Mac at Microsoft. And yeah, Paul, thank you. A big thank you for coming on, especially during the live stream, to talk about your products. And just to confirm, the products that your team is focused on, could you just list those off for us so we know exactly what we're talking about when we say Program Manager of Office for Mac?
Sure. And thanks, first of all, for having me on here. It's great. I kind of listened to you guys the last couple of weeks, and it's been really informative. So I deal mainly on the kind of the enterprise side of the house at Microsoft with our Mac apps. Specifically, I concentrate on Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and OneNote. Those are kind of the five core staple apps that I hold near and dear to my heart. Of course, we have other apps that we have native on the Mac as well, including Edge and Teams. We have To Do, Defender, and so what I try and do is we take some of that kind of core knowledge and expertise that we've had of developing those five core apps over the past almost 40 years, and really kind of expanding that expertise to all of the other sub-teams at Microsoft that work on Mac.
Yeah, and just to confirm, you're not just working at Microsoft. You are carrying an Apple Mac with you at work, right? Your team really they kind of live and breathe Apple within Microsoft. Is that right?
Yeah, and you have to. I've been at the company 24 years. The first 14 years was in the Exchange server team, so I was very much on the perf scale Win32 server. I started what is kind of now known as Office 365, so kind of big data center backends, and I kind of had this realization one day that I wanted to see what it was like to develop a client user interface. What goes on at the front end. So 10 years ago I switched from back end to front end. I switched from Win32 to Mac, and of course it's weird. It's strange. You don't come to Microsoft to be an Apple developer. Right.
Well, so you and I met years ago at a conference in Minneapolis at one of the Jamf conferences, JNUX. And I remember, you're standing in front of a Mac admin crowd, probably during a period of time where they had some questions they wanted answers from you. And I was very impressed. I was very impressed with the fact that you were willing to come out and just like today and kind of speak publicly, because in the Apple world, I must say, Microsoft doesn't always get the love they deserve because of the history that we've kind of seen. And I remember back in the Ballmer days, Steve Ballmer days, when it was rumored that Microsoft was never going to build an app for the iPad, or maybe even the iPhone. I don't remember all the details. But that's really shifted with Satya, right? The CEO of Microsoft, who came on in 2014. I mean, he really changed the perception of Microsoft, and you were there for that. Is that just an outsider's naive view of things, or did that really happen?
No, not at all. So Microsoft are fierce partners, fierce competitors. You see the kind of the commercials all the time. There's a little fun poking at each other, but we partner so heavily as well. You would have seen the Apple Silicon announce at WWDC last year, and one of the applications at the announcement that they showed was Microsoft Word running natively on Apple Silicon, and that's not just a happy coincidence. There's months and months of dedicated engineering that goes on and partnering between both sides there. But very kind of specifically, the Apple team at Microsoft has been around for several decades. But before Satya joined, it was awkward. I used to get some strange looks walking around campus with my Mac.
Yeah.
I almost kind of got kicked off of one of our connector buses that shuttles us between buildings. They thought I wasn't an employee because
Oh, right.
surely I wouldn't be carrying an Apple machine. But Satya kind of came in and the team didn't change, the culture didn't change, but it was accepted. It was more of a Microsoft has to deliver applications that the on the platform that the customer chooses, and if that choice is a Mac, then we need to be there with full performant applications on the Mac.
Yeah. So you mentioned the M1, and I pulled this page up maybe too early because she'll let you talk a little longer. But your team has already delivered M1 optimized apps, right?
Yeah,
And
in fact,
how long?
December of last year.
December of last year. So how long was it that you kind of had the lead time on that, if
We
you're allowed to
had
say?
Oh, sure. So we essentially got 2 months heads up
Two
going
months?
into yeah
That's
going into
all.
WWDC, but
Uh,
it's that wasn't the whole team. There was
yeah.
one from 1.5 people that were dedicated to that effort, and huge shout out to them for getting an awesome work done.
Yeah.
And it's much more than just like checking a box or recompiling with Xcode.
Hmm.
Office, we have millions and millions of lines of code dating back a long time, and so all of that code has to be kind of modernized and
Right.
recompiled and re-released.
Well, I have a question about that, but before we leave this page, and I know this is not your department, but Microsoft Teams, is there any ETA on when we'll see that optimized for M1? Have they announced anything?
I'm not sure about the formal announcements, but I know the team is working on it, and
Hmm.
so hopefully later on this year we should have some news there.
Yeah, I must say, we live in Teams quite a bit these days, and have for the past, even pre-pandemic, we had moved to Teams, and we're seeing a lot of uptick in Teams, and of course, Teams integrates with all the other apps. Um, I wanted to, so I want to get back to just something. I was doing some research, in preparation for today, and I came across this article. Um, Outlook for Mac OS finally gets a makeover, and I don't know the date on this, and this is from I don't know this guy Jonathan Towles. Do you know him? Just before I
The name rings a bell. Looking at the URL, it looks like maybe October of last year.
Okay.
Is
And I just want to point out, first of all, he says it's no secret that Microsoft apps on Mac OS are a bit of a poop show. And
okay.
I feel like that's rather harsh. And this is why, once again, I applaud you for going out there and defending and
You're
your
probably used to it.
yeah, you must have some pretty tough skin. I will say, when you get down to the bottom, he does end on a very good, recently, uh, let's see, this is something special. They have continued to develop and enhance the experience, which may finally be strong. And so he does end on a positive note. The whole review is really positive, but I also run into these instances, and it was very recently. I was in a meeting and introduced as kind of the Apple person in the room, and there's still this sort of misguided perception that if you're an Apple carrying, if you carry an Apple product, you don't embrace Microsoft. And we've embraced Microsoft since at least 2015, when we needed to make a decision about where we were going to go with our own platform, like internally. And years and years ago, we hosted our own email, and then we eventually moved to Rackspace Cloud, which at the time we didn't realize was a Microsoft backend. But there came a time where we all needed to make a decision: were we going to move to Google, or were we going to go to Office 365? And I still think those are the two decisions almost every business has to face today: Google or Microsoft. we we decided we wanted to align with our clients. What were our clients running? And so we looked and asked and questioned, and we knew what most of them were running from our data. But overwhelmingly, they were then and they are today running Microsoft Office. Yes, there are some outliers. Yes, there are people running Google as well. But we thought we needed to align with our clients, so we really embraced the platform. And I think you can really see your team's passion coming through in the apps. Uh, and but it's still surprising to me that people think it's always Microsoft versus Apple as opposed to Microsoft and Apple. And I just wondered if that's something, we now live in a Windows world, and Ntiva is essentially historically a Windows company, and I see the misconceptions about Apple. I'm sure you must see some of that within your own environment of Microsoft.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think Apple has kind of struggles with a perception as well. I hear people say, Apple really doesn't prioritize the enterprise, or Apple isn't enterprise ready. It's very rare to hear somebody speak of Microsoft that way. Microsoft
Right.
tends to have a kind of a really good reputation. And in fact, there are some cases where, you'll hear people say, well, Microsoft doesn't really understand the consumer market. They understand how to make, scalable products that work, but they're not particularly pretty. Whereas,
Right.
Apple really does kind of concentrate on the consumer. And I think, the kind of the competition aside, I think that's where, that makes us really strong as partners, because, we tend to bring kind of an enterprise mindset to the way that we develop products. But we don't just throw the icons and throw the command bars on the screen and say, well, it's functional, so let's ship it. Because the apps have to feel at home on the devices. Taking an app from a platform such as Windows, and whether you kind of port it or whether you kind of rewrite it, getting that app look, making the UI look like it's at home is table stakes. Within the first couple of minutes, the user is going to understand whether the developer of the application really uses a Mac or not. It's
Right.
like the subtle gestures, the kind of the way that notifications integrate. It's, the kind of the placement of certain icons where you would expect to find them. And, my job, working more on kind of the enterprise side is that, that beauty is not just skin deep. It's not just about, the great look and feel of the app. It's, can I go and talk to a Mac admin and prove to them that this app is enterprise ready, that it's ready to deploy. Right. It's, we use native installers, we use, proper MDM and preference management. That has to go all the way down the stack, so that anyone from a user to an admin can say, yeah, this is a bona fide Apple application.
And I would imagine the challenge. Sorry. Well, the challenge is, you have to make it look and feel like an Apple product, but you're working within the confines of a much larger ecosystem of Microsoft. Like, you can't just like Outlook has to kind of look like Outlook, right? So how do you balance that Windows look and feel and the Mac look and feel? Is it
right? And it gets, even more complex, because, we a couple of years ago, we solidified our code base, completely rationalized down to a single code base for our core applications. So whether it's Windows, whether it's Mac, iOS, Android, all of those apps are built out of a common code base. And you have to work really hard not to just make them, generic. It would be so easy to just say, we'll just make them all look the same.
right.
We're Office, so we'll just have just an Office brand and leave it as that. But that just doesn't work for users. They need it to look and feel at home. And especially on the Android, where you have a back button on the Android, you have like 3 buttons at the bottom. It's like, how do you decide what gestures to hook those to? when you have different like hardware capabilities as
Yeah.
well.
I've never heard of Android. I don't know what that is. But
So
Chad, did you have one question before I ask another or
Oh, I was
comment
just
that I interrupted?
you kind of touched on it. I was just thinking, I'm trying to imagine the legion of QA testers that put eyes and ears and every other senses into these builds, and that must just be a very, certainly time, an expensive process, but it shows, it definitely shows.
Yeah, I definitely, definitely appreciate that. We the folks that work at Microsoft on Apple products, we're kind of Apple fanboys. We really are, and we have to be. If we weren't passionate about the platform, you would know in an instant because it would shine through in the quality of the product.
Yeah.
Well said. It's very well
So
said.
I was surprised today when I was kind of looking at this to see that you announced the new Outlook for Mac in late 2019. Is that right? I mean, that's what the article is dated.
Yeah, in fact, it was the Ignite event back in 2019. We gave its first showing.
And I know today anyone who's running Outlook on the Mac can open it up and switch to the new Outlook, or they can switch back. And in fact, I've talked to Chad about this, Chad. So some days I think, you know what, I just want to run really lean, really clean. I want to get rid of my desktop apps and just use the web. Which, sorry, Paul, that's not your department, right? You're not the web. You're the desktop. But
well, I have to be all departments.
Yeah. But I always end up falling back to the desktop. Like for something I can't get myself, I can't overcome to live in the web. Like if I'm traveling, maybe. But even when I'm traveling now, I typically take my iPad. I use the native apps on the iPad. But I have tried to use the web, and I always fall back to the desktop. Well, then I tried the new Microsoft or the new Outlook experience, and it was early, and all the features weren't there. So I went back to the original Outlook. But I think you guys, I've heard you're close to getting the new Outlook finished, like feature parity. Is that right? Are we almost there?
Yeah, there are. I guess in the last month or so, we completed all of our shared calendar mailbox delegation scenarios in New Outlook, and that was a significant milestone for us, especially in the commercial business space, where you do need kind of that multi mailbox access. I think the couple of things that the people enjoy about the new Outlook, the kind of the foundation has been rewritten. Search has been a big pain point with Outlook going back, several years, and this is where we've said, okay, we have a lot of data that we're trying to integrate here with Search. Let's kind of take the power of the back end. Let's use our fast technology at the back end rather than Spotlight on the client. Let's shave off of the protocol overheads of Exchange Web Services and move to a more modern protocol, which is what we call HIC. So if you kind of do a side-by-side comparison of performance, and we don't sync the entire mailbox now, we just sync the kind of the most recent messages. You've got just a much faster experience. I will say that people that do switch to new Outlook, I see them kind of sit back in their chair initially because they have this like shock of the UI, and the UI is radically different. But when you kind of look at the UI, you can kind of see that it feels kind of right at home with Big Sur, and Apple changes its design language every couple of years, and it's important for the apps to kind of have that same familiar design language as well. So when we were putting the new Outlook together, the kind of the layout and the way that we look was really important to match the OS.
Yeah, well, I think it does look great, and I did enjoy using it until I ran into some of those features that were missing, and then I, for the sake of convenience, went back. But is there an official time? Oh, sorry, Chad.
Oh, so I was just going to say that one of my favorite things about the Office whole suite now. I mean, it used to just be Outlook, right? You had this backup plan we called OWA, right, which was really cool. That's unique, even still, right? To have that kind of a, two channels to access these tools and this data in this way, and that's something I've always valued, is really having that. Whether if I'm on a device that's maybe not work related, right, and I want to just check, maybe I'm on traveling or something, I want to check, I can use OWA in a way that's safe and minimizes risks to the business. I mean, there's a lot of of that built into it that I've always found very valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you get into this conversation of, should everything be a web app? And that conversation has been going on for many years. And I've certainly worked on web applications, pure web applications in the past. And I've kind of reached a conclusion that maybe one day we will be living in a kind of a browser world where everything is through a browser, but it is so hard to get that native feel using a browser. The technology is not there. If you have a perfect network and you have no network latencies, you can kind of get there. But in the real world, you have to have that proper kind of handling for performance and glitches on the network, and that's still where native apps shine.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Is there an official release date for when sort of the current or old Outlook will be gone and it'll just all be the new Outlook?
Nothing official, because we're still working on bringing that new feature set up. Probably the biggest outstanding item is the new Outlook experience for on-premise Exchange servers, because right now that new Outlook is only if you have Exchange Online. It's several more months worth of hard work to kind of bring that on-premise.
Well, I love and appreciate, from a support standpoint, that you guys built in this button to say, show me the new Outlook or bring me back. Because there's so many developers that don't do it that way. They're separate apps. Maybe they coexist, maybe they don't. It causes a lot of confusion. It causes a lot of calls to our support desk to either uninstall or reinstall. And as far as I can tell, you guys made it pretty seamless. Was that something that you had to fight for, or just how did that come about? I don't think I've seen that anywhere else.
Well, there's when you kind of go into a brainstorming meeting and you're thinking, wow, we could do so much with this new Outlook. It is good. We will make it so much better than what we have today. There is a tendency to fall into the trap of thinking, well, let's just rewrite it. Let's start from a blank canvas. Let's write it all in Swift UI and latest technology. And reality comes crashing down 2 minutes later when you realize that there is so much functionality that you would have to kind of rewrite that it doesn't make sense to have a brand new app. Although, for engineering reasons, that would be very cost effective. It really doesn't, work for the user base. And so, it made complete sense for us that, we wanted to have, essentially both apps, under a switch. And it really is two apps, because the foundation and the UI is just completely different between the two. But we also, you kind of don't want to get into this, situation where, you have two versions of Outlook on your machine, right? You
double the
really
mailboxes.
You really should just have, one Outlook. And then we kind of went that extra mile as well and built in, proper preferences. So the, IT admins had control over whether the new Outlook toggle was exposed or not. Because, the last thing you want is to, roll out an update for Outlook and suddenly, users are presented with, hey, do you want to try this new experience? And, they think, yeah, sure, that sounds great. And if it's really not feature complete, then you've got some very dissatisfied users and you've got calls into the help desk. So, we wanted to make sure that IT admins had also that power over what the user sees so that they can kind of keep their costs low and switch when they're ready.
Well, I also appreciate that we have not had to rebuild an Outlook database in I don't know how many years. That used to be, unfortunately, a common troubleshooting tool.
That's true.
Speaking of troubleshooting tools, you have a website, which I had up here, but I lost it. Here we go. macadmins.software. And you created this site, right?
Yeah, in fact, this site dates back to, I guess, late 2015. And just like most things, I could never remember all of the links to the various applications that we had. And so I created this web page for myself, and I referenced it multiple times a day to go get, so I could find out how to get the latest app. And somebody said to me, well, that would be just like really useful for everybody else as well. So I got a GoDaddy account and stuck the web page on there. And it's not the prettiest of websites. It kind of looks like it was compiled on a Commodore 64.
That's cool.
But it's very functional, and because I use it multiple times a day for myself, it means that I keep it up to date, and cool, it's important to be passionate about what you output.
Yeah, I really our team uses this website a lot because there's a lot of great tools, and like you said, just links you forget how to get to or how to find, and so this is fabulous. It almost feels like Microsoft, at least from my point of view, should embrace this a little more and give you some true branding love here. But this is all done on your own, right?
That's great.
It's awesome. It's a pretty fast website as well, because it's there is very little JavaScript in here.
Well, yeah, that's the downside. If you get corporate involved, they may also ruin the whole project. So maybe I should not have mentioned this. It's going to be, all of our listeners out there, it's going to blow up. Yeah.
The one thing I put at the top is, you can see near the header, all links on this page point to Microsoft's official download. So, it's important, that trust is important, that, if you put a wire sniffer on this, you can see everything going to the Microsoft network. It's just a wrapper page at the front end.
Yeah, and I see you have lots of great links here at the top, including your team and your Slack username. So you guys are putting yourself out there and offering support to the community. And I really applaud you for that, because there's so few companies today that will do that. Many of them even hide behind the fact that they can't do something for corporate reasons, and it just frustrates people. So you guys, you and your team alone have done Microsoft a huge service in just building bridges and with the Apple people out there, and you've done a great job of it.
Well, I appreciate it, and big shout out to all the Mac admins that I interact with. I am so much smarter because of them. I really am, awesome, and although it may feel like this is a good thing for Microsoft, to show presence in the community, there are so many things that I didn't know before I joined the Mac admin community. So thank you.
Yeah,
that's awesome. It represents a shift, maybe a larger, kind of almost meteoric shift in just Microsoft's approach to even open source software, right? It wasn't the case 10 years ago, where they were very open to this, community engagement of free software. And now, to kind of go 180 on that, that has to, have lots of positive side effects internally, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the world has changed, and, I like to think that, Microsoft keeps up with those changes and embraces them and is not stubborn.
Yeah. I know this isn't your department, but does Microsoft still sell a box set of their software? I feel like if I Google it, you can still find it, but it's like, is that legit or is that just...
Yeah, it's I know, every now and again I walk into kind of Best Buy or Target, and I see the little card hanging up, Office 365, and it has like a little activation code on the back. But I do know that if I walk into the company store in Redmond campus, you can actually still purchase the box set. It's in a real cardboard box, and we sell those online as well. So they still exist somewhere.
They still exist. Well,
Yeah.
I think Microsoft should kill those off because it just causes confusion. Just go Office 365 and forget about it. But I do have one technical question for you, because it just happened to me right before. In fact, I made the mistake of not inviting Paul properly to this meeting. He needs to be not a participant. What's the term?
A panelist.
A panelist. Thank you.
This is the while you're here syndrome, isn't it? It's like, while you're here, can you also
while you're here,
answer this technical question?
And it's not really technical. It's just a frustration of mine, and I don't know if you have the answer to it. But I feel like the Mac experience is, if I want to copy an email address, I want to copy just the email address. But Outlook always gives me the name and the email address, and then I have to delete the name and the little carets next to the email address every single time. And I haven't figured out, is there some secret way to change this behavior? Or do you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about, and I feel there is, but I can't remember I think there's a shortcut to just.
Okay. Well, that will be a team for the Mac admins, or I'll ask somebody on this team here. But that's the only thing that sometimes interrupts my Apple experience when using all of these products, is that little thing, that little copy and paste. And I find myself doing it way too often, and I always think there's got to be a way to not do this.
This will be my challenge for today. To go off and get this working if it doesn't already.
Yeah, and of course I waited till the very end so you didn't just walk out on that question in the middle of the live stream. But I'm just kidding. I knew you wouldn't do that.
We've got some good comments about that. Maybe I could share some questions about can't print calendar invite under Big Sur, running Office 365, and that lots of interest in your shortcut, Paul. What else have we had here?
I just saw our chat window. Yeah, like did I miss this?
He double click and then snips out the email only. That's what I do. Yeah, it's usually pretty easy to work around it. But
well, I have confidence that Paul is going to fix this. It's a huge issue in the community. It's causing fights at home. Parents are taking it out on their kids, and we've got to get it fixed. So,
oh man!
All right, give me till the end of today.
Okay, excellent. If you need all week, I mean, this has been happening for a while. But Paul, thank you very much for being with us. And I want to mention next week, because I got to do a better job of promoting what we're doing ahead of time. Not next week, because we do this every 2 weeks, but was it June 1st? Yeah, June 1st. We have Tom Bridge, who's also a friend of mine, and I've met at several conferences. Most recently, one in Australia, which was the pre-pandemic. Was that the last conference I went to? Maybe.
Tom is awesome.
Yeah. So Paul, you know him. Tom is now the principal product manager of Apple at JumpCloud. So
yeah, and big congrats to him.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to talking to Tom and learning more about not just JumpCloud, which we use, but also the kind of the differences. This type of product, I think, is challenging, and we'll get to this in 2 weeks, but it's challenging because there's a lot of confusion in the marketplace around what it doesn't do, and how it compares even to Azure. Like Azure has some overlap here with JumpCloud. Of course, Azure has a lot of overlap. I think it could do anything if you say the word Azure. But anyway, thanks, Paul. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for making time, Paul.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on the show. It was a pleasure.
Okay. Enjoy your day. Bye.
Ciao.